Hello and welcome to the final session of our online summit. My name is Kevin Poirot. I'm a reporter at Infosecurity magazine, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this session. For the next hour, we are going to explore what's coming for the cybersecurity industry and also for security professionals across all sectors. But first, let me go through a few bits of housekeeping. First, please note that all online summit sessions qualify our viewers for CPE and CPD credits based on a minimum attendance time. You will find the instructions for this in the document in the attachments tab below. Also, I want to encourage anyone watching to submit your questions about the future of cybersecurity using the Ask a Question tab below. We have a full hour to discuss the emerging cybersecurity trends, and this session is a great opportunity for you to pick our speakers' brains. We'll do our best to answer all questions by the end of the session. And finally, do head to our sponsor section, which can be found in our attachments tab as well, to take a look at those who are supporting this event. So predicting the future can be difficult business. In fact, I think it's a question that us journalists love to ask anyone we're interviewing. What do you think is going to happen in the next few months or in the next few years? And probably this question, this is the question that interviewees dread the most. But based on the past 12 months, we can make some educated guesses as to what is going to impact the cybersecurity world in the year ahead. Our panel of 4 experts have been living cybersecurity 24/7, but as you will soon find out, each of them has had very different roles and backgrounds, which makes our discussion all the more exciting. They have agreed to provide their insights into what they believe will be some of the biggest trends for 2023 and what industry professionals should prioritize. But enough of me talking. I'll let our speakers introduce themselves. Rokia, would you like to start?
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everybody. My name is Rokia Fofana, and I've been working in IT and cybersecurity for more than 20 years now. And I had the opportunity to work in the private and public sector, both in Africa and in the US. So I did start my career more than 20 years ago in the Washington, D.C. area, where I worked in the telecom company for Bell Atlantic and MCI, which were some of the biggest telcos back then, and which don't exist now. And then after that, I worked for a startup in the DC area. Then I was the IT consultant for the World Bank and other larger organizations for 10 years before moving back to Africa, where I worked, where I was a founder. I created an IT company there. I was a service provider for large banks and insurance companies there. Then I went to work as a government CISO for the country of Côte d'Ivoire. It's a country in West Africa with 30 million people. So I was a government CISO there for about 4 years before leaving, and now I'm back in the private sector. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Morris. I'm the Associate Dean and Director for Cyber Programs at Western Governors University. Prior to coming to Western Governors, I was an FBI agent for 25 years, doing nothing but cybercrime investigations and computer forensics. Then retired from the FBI, went to work for Pricewaterhouse as a manager over incident response and forensics, and went all over the world doing incident response investigations. And after being a road warrior for a number of years, went to work with a Fortune 500 energy company as the CISO, and did that for a couple of years. I've been with Western Governors University now for a little bit over 8 years, and I oversee the cyber programs. We currently have, our enrollment is currently at about 24,000 students in cyber between our 2 undergraduate cybersecurity programs and our master's program. So, and I have about 35 years of total cybersecurity experience. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Over to you, Margareta.
Yep, thank you. So my name is Margareta Petrovic. I am a global managing partner for Tata Consultancy Services, global consulting practice. We have a lot of global in our title. Prior to joining TCS, I've spent some time at Wipro, and before that, I spent a lot of time at Accenture, and I was also part of the industry in healthcare. Not many people know, but we have a high-end consulting practice that is dealing with different industries, various clients, and I'm here to share the collective experience that we gain from our engagements.
Amazing, thank you. And over to you, Jason.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Repples. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Corvus Insurance, which is a cyber insurance carrier. My background, I was born and raised in incident response. So we have a lot of consultants, which is great because I think there's a lot of experience you can gain from that. And so I spent over a decade doing incident response work for companies like Mandiant. I did a lot of startups, the Crypsis Group, which is now part of Unit 42 at Palo Alto, and also Mox 5. In my current role, I have a really kind of fun job where I run internal security, but I also run a threat intel team that focuses on where threats are going and how we can try to help our policyholders stay ahead of that, as well as our underwriters just understand the threats that companies are facing today. And also a small group of risk advisors that help our policyholders and our underwriters understand security and just help them improve security overall.
Amazing, thank you. So as you can see, there's a lot of different backgrounds and experiences around the virtual table tonight or this morning for you guys. So let's start the conversation, but just before we do, I wanted to launch a poll question so that we can also pick your brains and know what you have on your radar. So the question that I'll be asking you, members of the audience, is which of the following trends do you think will have the biggest impact on cybersecurity in 2024 and beyond? So some of the suggested answers are: the one is the increasing convergence of physical and cyber warfare. The second is the evolving sophistication of AI-powered cyber attacks like phishing or social engineering powered social engineering attacks using AI. The third is the growing threat of AI-driven manipulation and disinformation using deepfakes or misinformation campaigns. And the last one is AI regulation, or you can also say other and drop your thoughts in the question tab. So thank you, everyone. It's time to get out our crystal ball. So I don't have a crystal ball myself, but I took what I had, like the closest thing to it. So my first question will be on the threat side of things. I don't know who wants to take this question, but I would like to know, what do you think, guys, will keep cybersecurity professionals up at night next year?
Okay, I'll start. So
yeah, go ahead.
what I'm worried about, and I'm saying that from both the private and public sector point of view, is the first thing is OT, and the second thing is AI. So OT, because of the threat of the increasing threat to critical infra. And I mean, I've worked in Africa, and there in Africa, most of the critical infra belongs to the government. So as the government sees, so that was my main worry. And now I'm talking about AI. You mentioned deepfakes, and I'm going to add the fact that threat actors can actually weaponize AI to be even more efficient in their attacks. So I believe these are the two items that we should really, really keep on our radar.
Yes, I would echo what Fofana is saying. We all keep talking about new emerging threats that are coming up, but we all forget that we actually still have some very old pieces of infrastructure. We have some of the OT devices that cannot fit into IT box. So there is a lot of art about finding the right balance, limiting the risk, keeping the manufacturing, keeping OT up and running, while not introducing additional risks and keeping auditors and compliance and security on the IT end happy. So it's a real psychology and technology and governance game.
Yeah, I would like to add too on that. As far as the OT environment, we're so used to back in the day where you have your IT environment, your OT environment. I came from an energy company, and you have nuclear devices and everything else, But now it's really starting to blur when you think about the growth of 5G, how much 5G is growing, and how much data you can pump through 5G. I saw today in the news, I saw that China actually is putting 1.2 terabytes a second out across 3,000 kilometers, which was amazing.
No pressure.
And the other thing that ties into that is IoT devices. So you have, OT used to be its own separate network and everything, and now people are hanging out IoT devices, connecting them to 5G, and then trying to stay on top of that. Your surface is just gone crazy, with that. So those are two that came top of mind to me. I'll toss the ball.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a pin in AI because I have a lot of thoughts around that, and I'm sure it's going to be a big topic for us today. One thing that keeps me up is MFA, because we've reached a point now where we all think that MFA is the thing that's going to protect us, and it's true, but it is really coming down to the type of MFA that you have, because when you have weaker forms of MFA, I'm talking things like SMS, your text messages. I'm talking things like your authenticator apps, like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. Attackers have ways to bypass those today. And if you look back at even just the last 3 months, some of the major breaches like MGM, it invalidates a lot of the controls that companies have in place. And so I see that as like, this is not only an issue for next year, like that's an issue today, because the attackers, even without AI, are in a position where they have these toolkits available. We're starting to see attackers bypass them, MFA, for attacks like business email compromise. And so I just see this starting to take off, because the barrier to entry to bypass what used to be one of the most critical controls we have, still is today. Attackers can just walk right around that. And so there's more emphasis now on companies to really put the right form of MFA in place, and also have the right detections in place to see if somebody is trying to bypass those.
It's that topic is very interesting. I had a discussion with my family. When you talk about what AI can do in the realm of phishing, as far as how it was mentioned about deep fakes and how you can utilize that, we're almost having to step back in time, back to when I was a brand new FBI agent hunting spies, and the first thing they used to have a phrase and a passphrase, so I would come up to you and I would say, the sun is hot, and you would say, I can't wait for night, it would be the passphrase, right? And so the reason I say that is because, could you imagine you have a CEO of a company or a vice president of a company, and at 2:00 in the morning, they get a frantic call from their loved one saying, I've just been kidnapped and they need me to do X, Y, or Z. And it is their voice that you're seeing. Or you look on your phone and it is they're on the phone crying and screaming, on there. And you just woke up in the middle of the night, and the first thing you're like, okay, whatever, I'm trying to help my family. That's where you're getting back to those days. You got to have the passphrase again. It's like, the sun is hot, and if you don't get the passphrase back, then it's a fake. I mean, it's pretty scary that the technology is there. We have to get to that point. But anyway, please go ahead. I'll pass the stick again.
We're obviously going to talk about AI a lot, and about all these topics that you've all mentioned. I just wanted to quickly get back on Rokia. You mentioned OT, and this is something that we've been covering lately. Is there an increased interest for OT systems from the threat actors? Is that something, because when we talk about OT, we always come back to Stuxnet. We'll always come back to old cyber attacks. But it feels like maybe if you set aside Colonial Pipeline lately, there's not been a major big attack on OT systems. There has been industrial systems that have been shut down or impacted, but it was usually through IT systems. Is that something cyber attacks that are actually targeting OT systems and threat actors that are actually skilled in hacking OT systems. Is that something that you see coming in 2024?
So I see you saying that we haven't heard about OT attacks. You're absolutely right. That doesn't mean they did not happen. Usually your attackers come into your network, they camp for a while, gather enough information. Once they're ready, they can launch the attack. And this does not have to be one-phase attack. You can have multiple layers of progression and building the pressure, maybe ransomware, maybe something else, but the fact that you don't hear about it doesn't mean they don't exist. And I believe that one of the reasons why OT is becoming very interesting, very attractive target is because attackers know that there is definitely a deficiency in the right architecture. You have to have your layered approach. You have to separate pieces of the network so that your old elements are not compromisable because you can't get to them. So knowing that there are a lot of deficiencies, and in many instances you have engineers that are supposed to keep the plant up and running, trying to learn what they can to satisfy security and to protect their business, their manufacturing. So this is all creating a very attractive target. It's not about whether or not you can get into the system. You can get anywhere. The question is, how much is the attacker going to invest and how much they're going to get in return? It's always ROI, even for those cyber criminals. So if you make it expensive and difficult, they will just move somewhere where it's easier. And OT seems to be easier target.
And you bring up an excellent point, Kevin. You mentioned the pipeline, and so if you look at that particular attack, it was very public. Okay, so it was a gas line, right? And so it was a gas pipeline. However, at the same time, social media went spiked way up. Social media traffic regarding that spiked way up. And what did you see? You saw gas prices for your car. I don't know how many of you have natural gas cars. I don't. I put gasoline in mine. But the gasoline prices went up 25 cents to 50 cents a gallon because of the panic that one attack caused and the news cycles that it got. So I think to Marie's point, the OT networks, they're so vital. If one goes down or you're able to stop the right one, it is huge news and can have a much larger impact than just shutting down that one plant.
Exactly.
I think what's interesting though is there's, in those types of attacks that we're seeing, at least right now, right? A lot of those were defensive maneuvers to try to stop or basically shut down the IT environment. That hasn't even gotten to the point where the OT devices themselves have been impacted. And so we're looking at like the best case scenario right now if something were to happen, because take the Stuxnet example, right? Like that was meant for destruction. And so if we shift into this environment where they do get access into the OT environment and do something destructive, that's not, a week or two of downtime. That could potentially be years of downtime. And then I don't know what you do with gas on the East Coast in that case. Like, we're basically just done at that point.
I think what's also maybe stopping widespread OT success in attacks is that the systems are so different that the cost of attacking is expensive for the attackers. There was I read in the news that there was an attack on the Denmark power grid. I think yesterday or the day before. I mean, I guess it didn't succeed. It wasn't as as widespread as the attackers wanted. Maybe because they didn't really understand exactly how the whole infra is set up. But I mean, as they gain more and more understanding, I guess unfortunately they'll be more successful in the future.
But I mean, that begs the question then, is the bigger risk here where it's a nation state threat, similar to what we saw in Stuxnet? So does that actually confine the potential risk to more like wartime stuff, which is obviously very relevant right now? But like for the average kind of company, how should they be thinking about that?
Well, look, speaking from a war aspect, the one thing that makes all this very scary is, you go to war and you say, okay, it's $1 million missile that just got launched. Well, for $1 million, just think how many laptops and how many folks you can put in a room with pizza and drinks and tell them to go to town after a network. I mean,
And for how
you
long
get a lot
time?
of bang for your buck for the $1 million.
Mhm.
The right hackers.
And so this year, in 2023, we've seen a few different new trends, or sometimes trends that came back. In terms, if we stay on the side of threat actors, we've seen a lot of zero-day exploitation. We've seen a lot of DDoS attacks, usually in the wake of actual kinetic warfare. What kind of trends or what kind of motivations do you see for cyber threat actors in 2024?
I think the key thing is going to be financial motivation. We're looking at the numbers on ransomware. It just continues to go up and to the right, and that's not good news for anybody. And so, the barrier to entry for these threat actors to get access to ransomware executables, to get access into companies, that barrier to entry is fairly low right now. And so when you have this financial reward being so high with $1 million ransoms that are getting paid out, it's just adding fuel to the fire right now. And so I don't really see that changing in 2024. I think people are just going to continue to pile on. I think what we probably are going to see a difference in it is how is law enforcement going to try to go after this and try to combat it. And my hope is, and Mike, I would love to get your perspective on this, given your background, right?
Yes.
Like, my hope is that we can start seeing more coordinated action across the globe to try to take down some of these cells that are just making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point, and it's been going on that way. You mentioned the Bell companies earlier on, talking about working at Bell Atlantic and MCI. You worked at a hacker group that did exactly that. That went through all those companies and took out those companies, had root access down. But luckily for us, they're a bunch of kids, and they just wanted to get in there and make free phone calls. They didn't want to go down there and take out the infrastructure. But one of the things that happens, you have to understand, is that when, like say the FBI is investigating, a cell here in the United States, if we want to then go and we track them into the next country over, we have to have what's called an MLAT agreement set up, so that we can work, so that we can share information. And that's a diplomatic exchange and a diplomatic document, and it takes time to get those in place. And as you know, if we don't already have that built, if we don't already have the relationship built, trying to hurry up and try to get that in, it's real tough, And so we absolutely, need to make sure we're developing partnerships with all these other countries and all these different law enforcement agencies to be able to share that information, so that you can go ahead and track it and investigate it quickly, because sometimes that data is gone, within 24 hours. Trying to get the next breadcrumb is gone, and then it's like, so it's tough.
Well, if we see what happened in 2023, and if 2023 is anything to go by, then I guess we're going to see a lot of law enforcement action in 2024. But do you think it will be more collaborative than it is, or do you think they're already doing like a great job in that area?
Well, to think about the geopolitical situation that we are in, you have tensions all over the world. Do you really think that those countries that are against each other, that are probably launching those cyber attacks, regardless of the financial gain, there is something more than that they're really going to sit at the same table and exchange information? Even if that happens, it's going to be in a very targeted and controlled manner. So I would be hesitant about like a full and open collaboration. It's probably going to be very filtered and self-centric.
Yeah. Maybe on an optimistic note here, the UN is actually working on the international convention on the use of IT for cybercrime. But so it's the UN, and last year I was part of my country's delegation to one of the meetings. It's going to take a long time, but eventually there'll be something. So maybe
there is
there's
idea
reason to hope. Yes.
So I agree. Optimistically, I would hope so. To what was previously said about the you know, how quickly so a piece of paper may say we're going to exchange information. It doesn't say how quickly we're going to exchange information.
And what, and with what quality.
Exactly, and exactly. And so I think when there are tensions across the world, different groups, yeah, it definitely makes it hard from a law enforcement aspect when you're just trying to catch the bad guy, you know, not dealing with geopolitical, you know, whatever, you know, you're just trying to catch the person who's committing the crime. It makes it tough, and that is very tough on you know, to be able to do that role. So it'll be interesting to see. So I want to think optimistically and think that 2024 will be a better year.
Yes, we'll do our part.
That's right.
And before we move to the cybersecurity industry itself and the trends that you see there, one final thing about the threat. There's one thing, sorry to kill your buzz with optimistic thoughts. I'm going to be a bit less optimistic, but 2024 is the year where the most democracies will go to the polls. Do you think that manipulation and misinformation is also going to be a big thing in terms of the cyber threat?
Absolutely. I expect deep fakes to be a big part of the campaigns.
Yeah, I think that's where AI, unfortunately, is really going to shine as far as being able to stir the pot, as you were. So, you know, depending on how you wanted, which way you wanted the flow of information to go, the spread of disinformation, being able to put all these things out there. You know, they used to say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, now you got to try to figure out, is the picture even real? You know,
Exactly.
so it's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough go, and unfortunately. In every country, you have people that will see a picture and will immediately jump on it and say that is fact, you know, no matter what. I mean, it could be a Martian with a dinosaur on its back, and that is fact, you know. And so, yeah, I think we're going to see AI, unfortunately, cause a lot of disinformation.
Yeah, so I think that the whole securing of AI is a long way to catch up. We have a big question about the integrity of the data and validity of the data that you're getting from AI. So we are putting a lot of focus on securing the data, on like ensuring that data integrity is intact, as well as those processing algorithms that are learning more and more, because it's easy. You just affect the data and you can impact a lot of decision makers. There was a specific solution that used AI that was used in courts that demonstrated discrimination just because it was not designed well. So before the bigger damage is created, we are putting a lot of focus on the architecture of AI. Use is not so much of a problem, but making sure that it's serving the right purpose in an ethical way is very important.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of the conversations I have on AI, a lot of people go straight to like the phishing example or, you know, automating attacks and everything. And frankly, I'm probably in the minority here. I don't think that's a big issue for next year because I think the capabilities are several years out and, you know, the impact it's going to have. And so where I always try to redirect back to is disinformation. That is what Gen AI is built for, basically, for, you know, an attack. It's like it is the purpose built function that Gen AI can do to have attack. And like I fall like who remembers the Pope wearing a winter coat? I saw like, oh, crazy, right? And it's like, oh my god, that was like the eye-opening moment for me personally, where it's just like, okay, that probably took 5 seconds for somebody to generate, and you know how quickly that spread throughout the world. And just imagine with the elections on what that's going to have. And so, you know, we've seen like little snippets here and there of how it can kind of impact local elections and things like that. But what I'm really keeping an eye on is what are the capabilities that are going to get built to support the disinformation campaigns, and then how is that going to power the more cyber criminal world of, you know, phishing and things like that? Because I think that's going to be the opening entree for like what we can really see in cyber attacks outside of just, you know, global manipulation.
And so thanks for giving us this very it's obviously not very something that we hear a lot, that it's not going to be that not important but that transformative for next year, but it's probably something for a longer term. What do you think, Margareta? Do you think AI will transform the cybersecurity industry and the life of cybersecurity professionals? next year?
Well, next year at least we're going to start the journey. So if you look into the whole cybersecurity market, you have a lot of pressure that is coming to CISOs. They have to keep up with a lot of regulations. There is a lot of work they have to get done, clean up vulnerabilities, keep the lights up and running, monitor their environments. Companies go through mergers, acquisitions, ecosystem becomes even more complex. Then you decide to move to the cloud, but guess what? I still have a mainframe, so now I have to figure out how these two are going to play together and make it all secure. So it's fun, it's exciting, but it's extremely difficult. And with the shortage of the skilled resources that we have, the whole mindset has no choice but to shift towards automation, towards how do I do more with the fewer people. It doesn't even have to be driven by the cost savings. You just cannot get the work done. You can't hire 3 more planets to accommodate your cybersecurity resource needs. So out of necessity, we are going to move towards automation. Out of necessity and the lack of brain power, because you just don't have enough of people, you will have to move towards using AI. So I think AI is going to come big way as a way for us to address cybersecurity needs, point number 1. And point number 2, I think AI will have to become very big friend with cybersecurity and with privacy. That is just necessity. Otherwise, it's going to be a total mess. So those are my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. And for those who are interested in how AI will impact cybersecurity, we also had another panel session earlier today about this. So check it out. It's available on demand. But one thing that is coming, if we stay on AI, one thing that is coming probably next year is one of the first regulations around AI, which is the EU AI Act, and there probably will be more next year as well, or in 2025. How do you think it will impact not just the cybersecurity industry, but also cybersecurity professionals within organizations?
Well, I think the hope is that with regulation might increase widespread adoption of AI, and then in turn it would push the cybersecurity companies to create more products for that purpose. So that could be then we could have more tools, more AI-based tools to fight, AI-powered cybercrime.
I always wonder, with all the regulation that's coming, how many companies is it actually going to impact, right? Because you have a lot of companies that are experimenting with AI, and it's like all the names that everybody has heard of. You have this like middle tranche of people who are exploring, hey, how can I do more, build more autonomy or autonomous systems, whatever it might be. And then you have this other kind of consumer base where it's just like, hey, I just want to do a prompt in ChatGPT and figure out how to summarize everything that's going to be in that EU AI regulation, right? And so I feel like for the companies that are really investing in products themselves, that's where we're going to see the biggest shift. And I don't know what that looks like. I would bet it's going to be a smaller portion of the total number of companies that are out there. But that's where I think they're going to become the trailblazers on how we do this. I'm sure the regulation is going to completely wrong in the first draft, and that's okay. And so we just have to be open-minded with it, where it's like we're never going to get this perfection state right off the bat, because we're all learning about this. We're all probably terrified about it. And so like, what are the incremental steps that we can take to make sure that we're doing this safely in a manner that's responsible?
Yes, there has to be some structure. We at least need to have a first draft baseline, what we are trying to achieve. Acknowledge at least set of the problems. Let it be 3 problems, and let's all address them and then move to 5 and so on. But if we don't start, we're not going to get anywhere. To earlier point about UN regulation or standard, it is similar. You have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And moving on from AI, Margareta, there's something that you wrote in your article that is actually in the attachments below. You wrote that the pressure on CISO is getting stronger, or will be getting stronger in 2024. Could you explain why you think that is?
So you have CISOs that are traditionally coming from a technical roles. Maybe they were system administrators, maybe they were just lawyers dealing with the licensing, and circumstantially they became CISOs. Now, all of a sudden, security is getting a lot of attention from regulations. We have bills coming out. We have SEC came out recently, DORA in Europe. So there is more and more requirement from the board to demonstrate what they're doing about security, to demonstrate that they have appropriate capabilities and that they have the right resources. So guess what? Board is first going to look into CISOs who are traditionally coming from a technical background. Now, there has to be some intermediary, some translation, and coaching or supplementing CISO's capabilities to be able to talk business and board, but while also being able to address technical challenges. So more pressure, and the role is becoming bigger. Your threat landscape is becoming bigger. Your infrastructure is becoming more complex. So I think that life of CISOs is going to be even more exciting.
All right. I would agree with you, but I also think that I think the boards are finally going to have to step up and have somebody with the right background on the board. I think you're going to have to get to the point where we see somebody coming in with a CISO background, a cyber background, a privacy background, and they're actually they're actually going to have to start bringing that to a board level, I think, in order for some of these companies to survive. Because you're right, as far as the global impact of all the regulations that are out there, the privacy impacts, the issues, the amount of ransomware we're just talking about, how much money gets paid out there, it is no longer just a technical issue. It is a business issue. It is the survivability of the business. And it's risen up. So I think this next year, 2024, I think you'll start seeing more and more technically competent board members coming on, at least one on some of these major boards, would be my bet. Because unfortunately, no matter how great the CISO is, you can't keep dragging that person in every board meeting and put your thumb on them. You just can't.
I can tell you that we have increased number of clients that are coming with exact questions. How do I translate these upcoming Chinese cybersecurity data regulations that are going to come and hit me? How do I translate my Australian coming regulations? What do I do with this CEH? What do I do with CMMC? How quickly does this change? So these are more strategically tactical questions, but they are definitely demonstrating that there is a need for better collaboration between business, managing business risk, and cybersecurity.
I also think from a technical perspective, I think we're going to see a greater use of sovereign cloud just for some of these data privacy issues. I think we're going to see more and more. I think you're going to see that grow. And I think companies have to, in order to try to protect themselves, in order to be able to handle all the various regulations now that they're getting hit with. So it'll be interesting to see. Sorry, I'm going to pass the baton to somebody else here.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the trend towards government-owned data centers, specifically in West Africa. Several of the countries there, they want to have their own private cloud. And but to the point that somebody was making before about boards trying to get more familiar with cybersecurity, I've actually been invited to join a board based on my cybersecurity background. It's
good job, congratulations.
Good job for board.
Yeah, exactly, because now the board realizes that they actually need to better understand what's going on the technical side, so they needed to have a board member who can speak that language.
It'll be interesting to see. You need to take a before picture and then 5 years down an after picture. It's kind of like they show the presidents, what did the president look like year 1, year 2, year 3? Because I think that's going to be a very pressure sensitive role. It would be interesting to see, but the best of luck. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that we can use you as the success case study, because I'm going to take the antithesis view on this here. So I think that you have to have the security level expertise like yourself on a board. Where I have a more pessimistic output or outlook on this is that going to be enough? Because everyone here has dealt with security in businesses, right? The amount of buy-in that you have to get in order to push certain security initiatives, I personally don't believe that a single board member alone is going to be able to do that, right? And so, like, I think this is where we can look to you and be like, how are you learning to navigate the board that is also navigating the C-suite, that's supporting the security leadership? Because there's got a playbook that gets created there, because I think, and Marguerite, I think you pulled this out before, where you have to have this balance between the technical expertise and the business. And I think, like, we're so far swayed one way or the other that we haven't built, and I'm saying we collectively, right? We CISOs haven't built that nuance yet of how do you jump back and forth efficiently, build those relationships, because there's going to be projects that engineers are not going to care about. And it's like, you have to try to use your relationship capital to influence that. And so I don't see that clear picture yet on how can a single person with security expertise on the board really weigh in on that. And I think that's the thing that we have to break through to really unlock the true potential behind it.
Well, I think we will have Fofana's successful case study that we're going to elaborate on. But my personal opinion is that having one person is more than none. It is a great progress from zero, like exponential function. Like it takes a lot of energy to lift off of x-axis. So I think Fofana is starting that takeoff.
Thank you. I'll keep you posted.
We're doing this again in a year. You're going to give us an update.
That's right.
No problem.
Right, yeah.
With the picture before and after year one.
Okay,
That's
I'll
right.
do that.
And moving on from people to solutions and technologies, I'm sure someone is gonna tell me that cybersecurity is not just about technology, but in terms of the cybersecurity industry and the solutions that are there or that are not there, or where do you think there's going to be a momentum in terms of, is it going to be in cloud security, in AI powered cybersecurity? Where do you see where should we invest? Obviously it's not an investment advice here, but what kind of subdomain are you gonna do you see emerge or explode next year?
So I can tell you that based on what we see with the clients, so definitely trends based on DCS's experiences, clients want to have one comprehensive view. I don't want to go and look into 7 different places and then use some pixie dust to figure out what is my risk and where do I have to invest and then get the work done. So I see more and more transition towards comprehensive views, platforms that can get information from various elements of your infrastructure and tell you where you stand. If you can get some level of automated risk posture, even better. I also see more automation in creating and updating policies and standard operating procedures. So many of the manual work is just going to get obsolete, and you're going to get more efficiency, because like our tool landscape grew so much that you don't even know what you have. First of all, you don't know what to protect. Then you don't know what are the tools that you have, how deployed they are, how they're configured. Like, I just know they are part of my budget. And I cannot remove them, because if I take them off, God knows what's going to break.
Yeah, with all the patches they put on them, you don't know what's secure on the tool, what's not.
You pray before clicking submit.
My hope for
go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
My hope for next year is that you have more organizations that are investing in passkeys. I think the technology has finally caught up. It's almost embarrassingly easy to deploy now if you have the right technology in place, like a single sign-on solution. Like, I mean, literally a flip of a switch to get that set up. Obviously some planning there. That's where you want to plan ahead for this. But this is one of those scenarios that you don't get a lot in security, where you have a technology that can make things so much more secure, and it can make it easier for the user. Like, this is the utopia of security that we only get every once in a while, and every company should be going all in on this to make sure, because the jump that you get in security from that, in terms of getting something that's phishing resistant, it deals with all the MFA concerns I was talking about before. The benefits are just so much better in terms of cost savings and time savings. It's just going to be amazing. So I would encourage every company to lean into that, because that's going to be, that bucket that in your identity access management program, but that's going to apply to how do you make cloud more secure? How do you make your on-premise apps more secure? And I think we're getting to that point where there's going to be more and more support of it across all these different technologies. And so now is the time to really start investing in that.
Just make sure that they're quantum proof.
Yeah, that's actually that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. Is quantum still something on the mind of cybersecurity professionals at all?
I think it's kind of like, will it eventually come? Yes, I think it will eventually come. Do I think it's going to roll out next year, ready for prime time? I don't think so. And if it does, it's going to be at a state level use, which we probably will never hear. We won't hear about it for like 3 more years. So really, I could tell you that basically working for the government, all the really cool things happen, and then about 3 or 5 years later, then you see it out in industry. It's like, oh yeah, there you go.
And then everybody says the public sector is behind.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I have an opinion on quantum too. This is just one of those things where is it a risk in the future? Yes, absolutely. If this is something that you're prioritizing next year, then I would encourage you to reevaluate risk profile, because you're probably spending time in an area that's not really going to yield a lot of results for you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Too much ahead of the time.
Yeah, we have many more pressing issues, right?
Yeah, you said it before, where it was, their security teams have more work than they can possibly handle, which is why they're going to try to lean into, automating a lot of stuff. It's the same thing, right? And this is I feel like security 101 is you got to figure out the risks that are specific to your organization and are most likely to impact you, and focus in on those, because otherwise you're just going to lose your mind going all over the place.
You're never going to get that budget to begin with.
Yeah.
So if you want to get anything, to get the work done, first you have to put your priorities in check based on risk.
And I can see that the time is literally flying, and we do have a few questions from the audience which I really want to address before the end of the session. But there is one actually on insurance companies and on cyber insurance, and it's one of the topics I wanted to touch on today. So Jason, maybe where do you see cyber insurance go next year?
Yeah, so I think for cyber insurance, it's really about how are we understanding the threats that are happening. We just had a great conversation on that, and looking at the controls that actually matter. And so, this is the benefit of what I see cyber insurance does, is it can really create a bar of security that every industry, whether it's healthcare or anything else, has to meet in order to get insurance. And it's insurance, in my mind, is a requirement for any company that has a computer today, because of the threats that they face. So, really everybody. And so what I would encourage every company out there is talk with your broker, make a relationship with your insurance carrier, because there's a lot of value add that can come there. These are things that I have access to information on quantifying risk that nobody else does, right? And that's what we really try to bring to bear, is we make a whole industry out of quantifying risk, and cyber is still new and we don't have it perfect, but taking in some different technologies and really understanding where a threat's going and merging these things together, that interplay between data and just threat intel is really what can help drive things forward in the right direction, to make sure that you are prioritizing the right risks and the different controls that are going to make a difference in your security program.
Yes, and to your point about quantifying the risk, there are different methods, there are different ways that can be used to quantify what is the risk, so they can help determine what is the investment you're supposed to put in. Again, similar thing to attackers. They are trying to discourage, so you figure out how much you want to invest for how much that you want to protect.
And we have a few questions from the audience about what's going to happen next year and maybe the following years. One is on AI and quantum. When AI and quantum meet, will any data be safe relating to encryption? Probably not. Probably not next year, I guess. But
We'll come up with some quantum encryption way.
That's right.
Like, we'll catch up.
Yeah.
That sounds like
And,
the Death Star is what that sounds like. So,
Mhm.
and so someone else was interested in AI and how it's going to impact their job or their future job. They said during an earlier webinar about AI, it was mentioned that some organizations have replaced SOCs with AI. How realistic is it to expect to be hired as an entry-level analyst at the age of 53?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think so.
I mean, I think right now, I think AI, if we can get AI to do things like reduce the information load, so where you can see the gold nuggets versus a whole screen full of data, reduce the reporting load, those kinds of things, it would be amazing.
Some
And there are
triage.
tools that are coming along, and again, AI has been around for a long time. Generative AI, we just heard is the latest buzzword since last November, I guess it was. But machine learning and AI have been coming along for a long time. So if we can utilize that, I think it's going to definitely help the SOCs. As far as the replacing humans, I don't think we're going to be there next year. I don't think you're going to see that happen. What I foresee it doing is making the human more efficient. So they're no longer concentrating on grepping through large amounts of logs to try to find out what's going on. The AI will say, okay, this is what I've seen, this is what I'm doing, this is what, look here, but you're still going to need somebody who can go through and do the job. So will the job change? Will the roles change somewhat? Absolutely. But I don't think it's going to, whether you're 14 years old and you want to go work, I guess you have to be 16 maybe to get a job. But if you want to be 16 and go be, work at a SOC, or if you want to be 55 and go work in a SOC, I don't think AI is going to impact you there. I think it's just going to be a tool to assist you. So
yes, make you more efficient and the life easier. So think about the times when there were people manually looking through logs, and you got your SIM solutions, then you get your SIM and SOAR, and it's just evolution. It's not replacement in any shape or form. And thinking how we don't have enough of people, it is just going to maintain jobs for the existing people.
That's right.
Speaking about jobs and speaking about people, we've seen not long ago from a study by I think it was by ISC Squared. We've seen that the cyber skills gap has increased again by 12.6% in 2024 from 2022. What's being done to close this gap? And I think, Margareta, you called in your article, you called for a change in hiring strategy. If you could maybe tell us a bit more about this as well. Yes.
So I think there has to be a lot of investment in cross-training people, so that people are not being groomed and trained only in one technology. I think we have to start with the problem solvers. Start from the top down, so that our resources can understand the overall architecture, and they can understand how to come up with more creative solutions. So not focusing on technology, focusing on the overall problems that have parts of the solution in specific technologies. So I can elaborate much more, but the gap in resources is humongous, and we have to focus on efficiency. So you have to be more productive, you have to be quicker, you have to be more creative, and you have to automate. Otherwise, you're going to become obsolete.
Rokia, I can see you're nodding.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we might also think about retraining, because with the increased threat on OT and the advent of AI, most of the training manuals have become obsolete. We really have to add some chapters about these new threats or these increasing threats that are becoming a problem now.
Yeah, and I would agree with both of you as far as retraining, cross training, absolutely. Reducing churn inside your department, and maybe enabling a mentorship program within a company that would help as well. I will tell you from an academician standpoint, our school, the average age of my students are 35. So I don't have students, I have students coming in from high school, but the biggest amount of students I have coming in are those that are cross training, those that are, that are underserved and now getting they've been working, low labor jobs, and now they're moving into the cyber realm. So the age is 35 is my average student. They we make sure that they're cross trained, that they learn the full everything that we can about security from soup to nuts as much as we can in our undergraduate program. And you can have pros and cons about certifications. We make sure that our students not only get a degree but walk out with 15 industry certifications covering the spectrum of knowledge as a baseline. So at least when they go in, oh, one more step. So everything is skills based, right? So we want to make sure, because as a CISO, when I was the CISO and you had somebody coming in with a whole bunch of certs and they couldn't explain something on a whiteboard, used to drive me nuts. And so one of the things that we've done is we now have a cyber club that we have 8,000 students in the cyber club, and they do weekly defensive, using tool ranges to do defensive attacks, offensive defense, and then they compete nationally on there. And what that does, it gives them skill sets, allows them a chance to practice those skills. So when they walk into those interviews, not only do they have the certifications, but they can sit down with a whiteboard and go over and tell you specifically how to do something, and so that's how we're attacking it. And so we're trying to do our bit. So like I said, we have about 23,000 folks that are looking for jobs. So anybody who needs an excellent employee, I have a few for you.
Nice.
Thank you. And before we wrap this up, I wanted to I just took a look at the answers that we got from our audience regarding their biggest fear, I guess, or the things that they think is going to be the most challenging next year. So interestingly, 55% have said that the evolving sophistication of AI-powered cyber attacks are on their minds, and 24%, so that was the first answer, and then 24% said the growing threat of AI-driven manipulation and disinformation, and then 13% talked about the convergence of physical and cyber warfare, and then none has said AI regulation. So, what are your
Not
thoughts
yet.
on that? Not yet. Maybe we do this next year, and maybe AI regulations will be on everyone's mind. Who knows?
No,
What are your thoughts on these results?
well, there are. I'll tell you, when ChatGPT first came out, when it very first rolled out, I asked it to write some malware. I gave it some Python code, and it went all the way through it. And then 3 days later, I tried it again, and it wouldn't do it. And so if you told it was a security test and you're doing a security audit of your system, I said, I am doing a security audit of my system. I'm trying to run this, and again, it would spit it out. And so
social engineering of AI.
Exactly. So within about a month, though, they cut that out. But on the question about use of AI, generative AI to assist in these attacks, absolutely. On the dark web right now, less than $7 a pop, you can get it. So I mean, it's definitely out there. Is it perfect? No. It's not. It's not. It's not going to drill into all of your systems at one time. So it's not Armageddon. So, but it is a tool.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is that even though these tools exist, and these tools appear and disappear just as quickly. By the way, some of the big ones are gone already. But I think the big thing is, guess what? The security strategy that you have in place today doesn't really need to change, because these aren't drastically changing the way that attacks are going to happen. They're just making the existing attacks more efficient. And so for anyone that's running a security program, the emphasis comes down to no excuses anymore. Get your plan in place, make sure the basics are there, and you're still going to be well equipped to deal with whatever capabilities that might come out next year. And I think over the next couple of years. And so stick to the basics, and you're going to be in a good spot to defend against these, advancements that are going to come in the coming years.
To end this session, I would like to ask each of you to make one wild bet for next year, if you could briefly, because we don't have that much time left. But if you have one wild bet that maybe we can look back in 1 year's time, and we'll see if you're right or wrong.
My,
You're
my bet
betting?
is my bet is I think our board member here is going to do a tremendous job, and I look forward to seeing her next year and what a great job she's done. So good
Thank
luck.
you. Thank
Can I add
you.
my chips to that bet?
Thank you.
We're going all in on that one.
Okay,
All on the
thank
same
you.
bet. Okay,
I'll
We
let
have
great.
you
Well,
know.
consensus.
Mhm.
great. Well, we'll touch base in a year's time then. Thank you,
Thank you.
all of you for joining, and thank you to all our audience members as well for joining. This was the final session of our online summit, but don't worry, you can already watch all sessions that you've missed on demand. We'll be back next year for another edition, and in the meantime, check out our website, InfoSecurity Magazine, where we'll be reporting on all the trends we've been talking about today. Until then, that's a goodbye from me.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.